I would like to introduce our first speaker, Deacon Paul Consbruck. He's a permanent deacon in the Diocese of St. Augustine and also a lawyer with over 20 years of experience in the legal profession. He and his wife are the proud parents of 2 daughters, and Paul has been asked by Bishop Reverend Felipe Estevez, Bishop of the Diocese of St. Augustine, to read a statement on the bishop's behalf. Paul?
Thank you, Diane. As Diane mentioned, I am asked to read a letter from our bishop, so I'd like to go ahead and start. First of all, I'm delighted to be asked by the Most Reverend Felipe Estevez, the Bishop of the St. Augustine Diocese, to represent our Catholic diocese today. 2 months ago, approximately 700 people gathered in this public square to express their concern over the now finalized rule of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services that would force virtually all private health plans nationwide to provide coverage of sterilization and contraception, including abortion-inducing drugs, subject to an exemption for religious employers, which is yet to be defined by the agency. So it is indeed encouraging to see just as many people come out today to show their commitment to stand up against this unjust and illegal mandate. We are Catholics, and we are Americans, and we are proud to be both. Grateful for the gift of faith, which is ours as Christians, and grateful for the gift of liberty, which is ours as American citizens. Being forced to choose one over the other has never been a choice we have had to make, or could even imagine having to make until now. We cannot stand silent at this deliberate attack from the President of the United States upon religious freedom. Last August, when the mandate was first proposed by this administration, there was much vocal opposition that crossed partisan and religious lines. In response, the administration gave assurances that the concerns over religious liberty would be addressed. But in January of this year, the administration announced that the mandate would not be changed, and that the only concession would be to delay enforcement for another year. And after still more objections from the Catholic Church and others, the administration stated in February that the original mandate would not change at all. The President and his administration did nothing to relieve non-exempt Catholic employers from having to violate their deeply held religious convictions. And so, this year, many Catholic institutions had filed lawsuits against the federal government on the premise that this law directly violates the United States Constitution, which protects our most cherished freedom, the freedom to practice one's religion without government interference. This is not a battle over whether people have access to certain contraceptive services or about protecting women's health. It is not about religious freedom for Catholics only. It's not about the Catholic Church wanting to force anyone to do anything. But it is about the federal government forcing the Church to act against its own teachings. And it is about the federal government defining religion and religious ministry, essentially allowing religious freedom only to houses of worship. As it stands now, the law would not exempt from enforcement Catholic hospitals, schools, universities, all who employ and serve Catholics and non-Catholics alike. Catholic social services, like Catholic charities, would also not qualify for religious exemption under the law because they bring assistance to the poor and marginalized of our communities, regardless of their religious affiliation. Indeed, over 90% of the recipients of Catholic charity services are not even Catholic. And thus, this important ministry would also have to comply with the mandate or cease to exist. The U.S. Catholic bishops are calling upon all people of faith throughout our communities to join us in prayer, because prayer is our ultimate source of strength. This month, we are beginning a 14-day period of prayer called a Fortnight of Freedom, beginning June 21st and ending on July 4th. It's a time of prayer and fasting for a new birth of freedom in our beloved country. This is a time for us to ask guidance and strength to reach out to family, friends, and neighbors about this pivotal issue, and to be a public witness for the defense of religion. You can go to the diocesan website, www.dosafl.com, for more information about the Fortnight of Freedom. The Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. once quoted St. Augustine in his famous letter from Birmingham jail in 1963, and this is what he said: "I would agree with St. Augustine that an unjust law is no law at all. A just law is a man-made code that squares with the moral law or the law of God. An unjust law is a code that is out of harmony with the moral law." We are faced with an unjust law. And it is necessary that all Americans object. Freedom of religion is our first freedom, because if we are not free in our conscience, in our practice of faith, then all other freedoms are fragile. If our obligations and duties to God are impeded, or worse, contradicted by our government, then we can no longer claim to be a land of the free and a beacon of hope for the world. Yes. The U.S. Catholic bishops are united in this stance, affirming that our faith requires us to defend religious liberty granted to us by God and protected in our Constitution. Freedom of conscience belongs to all of us, Democrats, Republicans, Independents, and others. And finally, as Americans, it is our fundamental right to protect religious freedom. And more importantly, it is our moral obligation and legal duty to do so. Yes. Sincerely yours, Felipe Estevez, Bishop of the Diocese of St. Augustine. Thank you.